Grassy Posse Packer Nation, welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grassi, and today we are going to be breaking down the dumpster fire of a preseason game between the Oakland Raiders and the Green Bay Packers last night, in which the Packers were defeated 13-6. And if the score alone wasn't enough to tickle your fancy and pique your interest, well, nothing will, because this game was just bad. The majority of our starters were out. There was no Aaron Rodgers, there was no Devontae Adams, there was no key offensive line stars, and oh boy, did that show, because this was just brutal to watch in every sense of the word. But before we break down our highlights, this show is sponsored by Allergic to Fun, my debut comedy album that came out yesterday, and because of all you fine people, reached #1 on Amazon, which I am just overwhelmed and ecstatic. I was riding that all day yesterday, and I want to thank you for that. If you haven't bought it yet, you can check it out on iTunes, Amazon, or you can head over to tomgrassicomedy.com to pick up a physical copy. Everyone who has listened to it, I've gotten great feedback from it, and I think you're really going to enjoy it as well. So a big thank you to the Grassi Posse and the Packer Nation for your support. Now, before we get into diving in to the highlights, let's talk about some injuries. Oren Burks seems his injury is nothing serious. He's not in a sling, so that is all good news. And Ty Montgomery, who left in the middle of the game as well, his injury doesn't seem to be serious as well. But for Ty Montgomery in a crowded backfield, I don't think this bodes really well for him, as he has, as we were talking about last week, hasn't really been playing that great in the preseason. So it's going to be interesting where they find a role for Ty Montgomery. Now, I would think arguably the biggest story that happened in this game was the reuniting of Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson. And I thought I was over it. I thought that I could get through it. But then this happened. So yeah, I'm not over it. But other than that, that was basically the best throw you were going to see all night from Aaron Rodgers, because he didn't play. Good old Jordy Nelson. We take a look at some stats real quick. You had Hundley, who went 8 for 14, who for 78 yards, who sacked twice. He actually outplayed DeShone Kizer, which really, I don't know what you do with this backup quarterback situation. And as a fan, it's starting to get a little frustrating, because if Aaron Rodgers goes down again, this is not going to be good. DeShone Kizer didn't do much better, went 11 for 23, 120 yards, got sacked 3 times, and we'll talk about DeShone Kizer in a little bit. Some big plays, though. Jaire Alexander, who got burnt in the very beginning of the game for a long pass, but he made up for it with this phenomenal pick in which he essentially just looked like a wide receiver, just going up and grabbing it. So Jaire Alexander, who just had a groin injury, coming back, I'm really excited about this kid, and his ball hawking skills and his speed really, really impressed me in this game. And so I think he's going to be phenomenal. Josh Jackson actually had another pick 6. Unfortunately, it was called back. But again, Josh Jackson showing for the second week in a row that this kid definitely has the skills to play this game. So things are looking up. Now, on the other hand, you had Quentin Rollins, who really has been struggling during this offseason. And right now, I don't think Rollins makes the team. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Packers decide to do with him, as cuts are looming. A former second-round draft pick, I don't know if Rollins is going to be here at the start of the season. Vince Beagle, Kenny Clark, each had 3 tackles. You also had Reggie Gilbert, who continued to impress. He had 3 tackles, 1 forced fumble. It wasn't lost, but still, Gilbert has been impressing this entire offseason, and in my opinion, has definitely vied for a roster spot. We had 13 penalties for 110 yards. We had 3 fumbles. None were lost, but still didn't look great. Our O-line looked terrible, sacked 5 times on the night, and it was just nasty, considering that it just happened over and over and over again. So, yeah, really not a whole lot of highlights in this game. You did have Jamon Moore, who was the wide receiver of the night. He had been struggling, obviously, with catching issues. He went 4 for 62, had a great grab. And so, hopefully, things are starting to pick up for him. It's going to be very interesting to see who we actually select out of our wide receiver pool, because we have a number of options. Kumro didn't play today, so he wasn't able to ball out. But considering that next week is already the final preseason game, it's going to be intriguing to see who we wind up keeping, who we're going to assign to the practice squad, etc., and who we're just not going to let come back. Now, before I end this, I wanted to talk about DeShone Kizer for a second, because for the first 2 preseason games, I would argue that Kizer looked pretty good. He looked raw. He had at least like the skills, and I would say he was beating out Hundley. But he did not play well today at all. Yep. But let me know what you thought about the game down below, who you think is going to make a roster spot. We'll be coming out with a video over the next week of my predictions of who's going to make the 53-man roster. But let me know what you thought down below. You could always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, TomGrossi Comedy, or Tom Grossi Comedy on Twitter and Instagram, and also the Facebook. Check out Allergic to Fun, my debut comedy album. You can get on Amazon, iTunes, Napster, Tidal, a bunch of random things, MySpace that still exist. You can also pick up a physical copy at TomGrossiComedy.com. You could also, if you are so inclined, you can donate to Parkinsons research. I'll be running the New York City Marathon in a couple of months, so you can check that out. All the links will be in the description down below. Well, that's it for the Raiders and Packers highlights. That's week 3 of the preseason as we get closer and closer to actual football. But I'm Tom. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.